Gliscor is banned from OU, folks. I cannot believe this is real. Gliscor seems like a regular old Pokemon. It's been OU for generations. Over a decade. And now it's banned from competitive singles. And this wasn't an arbitrary decision. There was a survey. Most people on the survey said Gliscor was the biggest issue in the metagame right now. And this ban was democratic. Look at how many people voted to ban. 66% of the qualified players. This is truly bizarre to look at. Uber, Gliscor, illegal. I can't believe it, to be honest. This is crazier than banning Volcarona. Volcarona I can understand. With Terra it's broken. Regielektric. Gliscor though? It wasn't even because of Terra this time. They gave it spikes. Nothing has ice moves anymore. It's far too powerful. Far too much defensive utility. Defensive Pokemon rarely get banned. Support Pokemon rarely get banned. It's a rare occurrence. Usually the problems in a metagame are offensive powerhouse Pokemon that have little to no counterplay. This is a very rare instance of a defensive Pokemon being too difficult to handle, constraining the tier. It's interesting. Poison Heal is such a good ability. And I guess in a way Gliscor has always been on that cusp of really powerful but not quite ban-worthy. Poison Heal is often the ability of choice in balanced Hackmons, which is a format where you can choose any ability you want. Basically play with hacked Pokemon that have any move they want, ability, etc. Poison Heal is one of the most popular abilities in that format. Status immunity, item knockoff security, incredible amounts of chip heal, the utility, the defensive typing. It all makes sense, but still it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel real. But there is a bit of a caveat, because Gliscor might not be permanently banned. There's a hint here. Blunder tweeted this. Waited 4 whole years for Gliscor's return just for him to get banned in 1 month. That's life sometimes. A brooding, tragic tweet, but then Finchinator with the quote tweet. He'll be back in a month anyway. Finchinator, if you don't know, is the OU tier leader. Does that mean that when the DLC releases, they will bring Gliscor back to OU to be retested in the new environment? To be honest, that sounds pretty fair. In the current metagame, this Pokemon is very oppressive and constricts the tier. But when the DLC releases, there'll be new options, it'll be a very different metagame, and Gliscor is a fair Pokemon to retest because of the precedent of, it has a history as an OU ranked Pokemon. It's never been Uber's level until now. This is a very strange situation, so it's probably a good move to ban it temporarily and retest it. Speaking of retesting Pokemon that are already banned, Finchinator also tweeted this pretty recently. Zama Crowned would be mid in OU. If you don't know, folks, Zamazenta Hero and Zamazenta Crowned were tested in OU, and then there was a quick ban vote. Zamazenta Crowned got rebanned to Ubers, but Zamazenta Hero remained in OU. One of the first box legendaries to be OU ranked. But Finchinator is suggesting that Zamazenta Crowned could also be a healthy member of OU, would not be too powerful, would not be a problem. Could this be another Pokemon they can consider to retest when the DLC drops? I think that would be fair. Perhaps this means that they're going to retest multiple more Pokemon that have been banned. The amount of bans in Gen 9 OU is almost reaching triple digits, and yet there's still more. There's still issues in the metagame that people are talking about. And the next Pokemon on the chopping block are probably these two, Gholdengo and Sneasler. Gholdengo has been a problem for a long time. It was on the radar pretty early on. Good as Gold is one of the best Pokemon abilities ever made, by far. This Pokemon is immune to status moves. Not only does that include effects that apply status directly like Will-O-Wisp, Sleep Powder, etc. It also applies to Defog, Trick. Even an effect like Parting Shot won't affect Gholdengo. So this is the first Pokemon that's ever been able to block Defog from happening, which has changed everything. Led to a very hazard stack focused metagame where spamming spikes with Ceaseless Edge or just spikes itself, and blocking Defog and Rapid Spin with Gholdengo is the primary cornerstone of offensive teams. And as more knockoff users have come back to knock off those pesky heavy-duty boots, and, better spike setters, sticky web setters are now here with Rabombi, Gholdengo is enhancing these strategies more and more, and it's something that people are getting a bit sick of. I think that having hazard removal is important for metagame health, and Gholdengo is kind of forcing teams to run Great Tusk as the only thing that can threaten Gholdengo and have hazard removal at the same time, which is an unhealthy interaction to have this format center around so much. So many players also thought that Gholdengo was more of a problem than Gliscor was, and Gholdengo should have been the first to be addressed, but Gholdengo was the second most hated Pokemon in that survey, so it's probably next if they're going to do a suspect test, or maybe they'll do another survey and reevaluate. And then we have Sneasler, folks. This is a Pokemon that I speculated would be banned in OU. When I first learned what it did and all of its tools, it's one of the most powerful Unburdened sweepers we've ever seen, and we've seen much worse Pokemon with Unburdened be extremely powerful in hyper offense like Holucha, back in Gen 7, even the occasional Slurpuff. And this is maybe the best unburden user we've ever seen. I thought it would be a very unhealthy, like, insta-win Pokemon, but it turned out to survive the heat. It was, I think, the victim of quick ban votes. It survived. People didn't deem it to be that much of a threat, but now Rillaboom has become much better, with the grassy terrain setter receiving Grassy Glide once again, an important option that it didn't have access to previously. And with Rillaboom returning to power, not being as much of a deadweight team choice, actually being a good mon on its own, this Grassy Seed Sneasler set has therefore been enhanced by proxy and become one of the most popular things in the hyper offense metagame right now as a acrobatic sweeper. This is a Pokemon that's definitely enhanced by Terra, because it gives it free turns to set up by removing its weakness to ground and replacing it with a valuable immunity. And of course enhancing the damage of acrobatics further. And this is another Pokemon that isn't a legendary or anything special, it's just a regular old evolution of a Pokemon you can just catch in the wild in Pokemon Legends Arceus, that is on a power level that is too overwhelming for the Gen 9 metagame. This is an insane Pokemon, it's extremely powerful. I think they should definitely reevaluate Terra, do some more surveys on it, but I've kind of changed my mind on whether Terra is the problem or not. Terra is not that bad in some metagames. In like UU, lower tiers, different tiers, Terra is not the common factor in multiple things being overwhelming and broken like it is in OU. I think that the OU metagame just happens to be a difficult power level to manage, and there's so many Pokemon that are just on this cusp of brokenness. I can understand the frustration with all of these Pokemon being banned so often that casual players seem to be having. To be perfectly honest with you, it's the main reason that I'm not so enthusiastic about the generation. I don't think it's Smogon's fault. I don't think it's their fault, but it is annoying as a player to invest time into a metagame that is constantly changing. Like every month, there'll be dramatic shifts in what's good, what's not, what is even allowed. And then with DLC coming around the corner, that is going to completely change everything again. It's a little hard to justify investing time and energy into a format that is so chaotic and unstable. But Smogon is handling this format in a way with more community involvement than we have ever seen before. There are surveys you can vote on that they take into account with doing suspect tests. That's a direct thing you can participate in. It's like pretty much entirely democratic, this process. Not only the suspect process, but the surveys that determine what gets suspected. So it's a little weird to see people complaining about Gliscor being suspect tested when the community of people who play Gen 9 OU the most voted for that specifically. That was the #1 outcome. That leads to a suspect vote, and the suspect vote was a democratic thing. People voted for the Pokemon to be banned, so it got banned. What are you supposed to do? You can complain about the outcome, but you were able to participate in it if you wanted to. It's possible they should have some conversations about what the identity of OU even is at this point, because it's so messy to try and maintain this power level of the past. And it feels like a never-ending process of banning to reach that vision that might never even come. But at the same time, many metagames of the past suffered from not enough action, not enough bans. Like Gen 7 OU had a lot of problematic Pokemon that remained in the format for way too long. Some still are to this day. And I think metagames like Gen 5 OU that were quite difficult to balance improved significantly when people stepped in to actually make more changes, like banning gems and reintroducing Excadrill to the metagame, stuff like that. I think were positive things. I think they're trying to do what's best for the health of the metagame. That's their goal, but the way that that is achieved is subjective for sure, and there's discussion to be had in that area. Anyway, folks, that's all I have to say on the subject, but on a more positive note, look at this. Look what I have in my possession. It's Iron Mugulus. He's for sale right now on the following link over here. I think I can, there's functionality to link the product on YouTube. How good is that? Get your Iron Mugulus. It's only available in US, Australia, and New Zealand at the moment, but we're working on other markets. That's insane. Thank you, folks. I'll catch you later. Thank you to the patrons for your continued support, and thank you as well to everyone who has donated to the prize pool for this tournament.
Whoa! KO'd by one hit! It's scattered spike!
The money got different, cause of what I'm spending.